All right. Hey there, and welcome to this episode where we're going to talk about a question that I got via email where it's, why do I have this specific theme? And so, for those who don't know me, my name is Matt Cotty, and I'm the founder of Restored Minds and the creator of the AAA Response. And in this episode, I want to really talk about just this one question. And it's not going to probably be a terribly long episode because the answer is so much simpler than you may think. So this question of why do I have this specific theme that I have, is something that I get a lot, and asking this question is going to lead you to safety behaviors. It's as simple as that. Okay, it doesn't matter is the answer. Like if I just had to summarize, what happens a lot of times is people have a certain theme. And then what happens is they try to figure out why they have that theme. And they think that if somehow they solve why I have this fear of this thing, that somehow like I'm going to resolve the fear, or that somehow everything's just going to magically go away. And, every person I've ever talked to, and I remember thinking this very, very clearly on my own journey with this, especially when I was really, really stuck. I always thought like, man, if I had a different theme, this would be so much easier, right? Like this clearly what I'm struggling with is the hardest theme that there is, right? I'm sure most of you feel like that because it is the hardest theme for you. And this is what I love about, running groups and in our group program, right? With taking back control, like one of the most powerful things that is and why I believe groups should be like mandatory for anyone wrestling with this is because when I run a group and literally like everyone's talking about their theme, someone might be talking about, let's say like hit and run, and someone else might be talking about intrusive thoughts. Another person might be talking about contamination and scrupulosity, right? Everyone else looks at everyone else and is like, man, that makes no sense to worry about that. Like it's clearly anxiety. It's clearly OCD. If you don't do your behaviors, it's like, your brain will learn that it's not a threat and, it will stop producing the thoughts, right? Because the only reason that your brain keeps producing this specific thoughts is because you keep reinforcing it with behaviors. If you don't reinforce it with behaviors, your brain's going to be like, oh, well, this doesn't make sense for us to keep throwing up these thoughts. Yeah. And so when you understand that, though, the funny thing about group, though, is that everyone will look at everyone else and be like, that fear is totally irrational. But when they get to themselves, they're like, well, mine's real, though. But mine is real. And one of the things that I think group does, and why I encourage group, and why I literally, anyone that works with me, it's like, whether it's in the one-on-one program or my group program, most people just go to the group program because group, I believe you can be successful just doing group, just doing group for this recovery process. That's mainly what I did on my own journey, was group work, because that's what I could afford. But actually it was way more beneficial than one-on-one, because in one-on-one, people talk about their themes relentlessly and they never have any outside clarity because they're the only person talking. So you don't have anything to cross compare with. But when you can start to see someone else's fear objectively, right, and listen to them talk about their fear in like a group setting, you can start to be like, that's completely irrational. And you start to understand because you don't have the emotional attachment to that specific theme, right? So why do you have a specific theme is just because you've reinforced it so much and you have this high emotional charge. When we remove the behaviors, we remove the emotional charge, and eventually you just see it for what it is. It's just a thought. It's just a scary thought. That's it. That's like what's at the end of every tunnel, is like, this is just a thought. And it's almost like the answer is too easy in the mind. The fear mind is like, that's not an acceptable answer because there's no way it's that easy. I wouldn't have worked so hard and I wouldn't have spent all these hours and time, on this stuff if it was just that easy. And it's almost like our minds don't want to accept that answer. But when group, And the thing about group and why I encourage group so much is because when you look at other people's fear and you listen to them talk, you can see how their fear mind works in the exact same pattern as yours. It just interchanges your fears with their fears and these behaviors with these behaviors. And you can see how irrational it is by every single person. And eventually you can kind of like come back to yourself and be like, man, like, because I remember, and this isn't, I don't mean this to come off as judgmental in any way, but obviously I've sat and facilitated many groups, and I know how irrational the fear mind can make one get, right? It's like, because I've been there personally, and I'm just, I'm exposed to it every day. But when you can really watch someone talk about their fear and just have this sense of like, man, this makes no sense. And like, this person's so lost in the fear mind and that lens of fear. What you ultimately come to the conclusion of is like, man, I wonder if I sound like that to them when I'm talking about my fear. Because many of us will know at some level like this, we start talking about our fear out loud and we're like, I know this sounds crazy. People say that all the time to me, Matt, I know this sounds crazy, but, right? I had this thought, but, I know, X, Y, and Z. And when you can actually begin to challenge this idea of like, you know what, like maybe when I'm in my fear mind, I'm thinking this exact same way about my fear as everyone else in the same group is thinking about their fear. It's not that nothing's wrong with them or nothing's wrong with you, but when you get caught in your fear mind, you need to understand that your mind is not operating at its normal capacity. Like things are distorted. And anyone that gets into the fear mind knows that. We all have the ability to get in this fear mind and for our way we view the world to become distorted. Our perception becomes distorted. That is what the fear mind does. We get caught in this lens and it distorts our reality. Right? It's undeniable. There's the same thing like I was saying in 2020 when people are hoarding toilet paper or just the behaviors that you watched when mass panic took over. If you watch that, it's like that doesn't make rational sense. And for most of us, we know our behaviors aren't rational. They just were operating out of this feeling of fear. Okay. So when you go into why do I have this specific theme, the answer is it doesn't matter. The answer is just simply because you keep doing behaviors that reinforce it. That's it. That's why people will bounce from theme to theme to theme to theme, or someone will struggle with a theme for many years. It's not because the theme has any significance at all. It's just because you're engaging in behaviors that are reinforcing that loop. Like, that's it. Case closed. There's no other mystery. You don't need to go Sherlock Holmes this and like, well, you know what? If I just keep digging in my past, and if I just go back to, I'm going to go start when I was born, and I'm going to go through every day that I can remember, and I'll find something. Yeah, you know what? I'm sure your mind will come up with something that will then connect and all that. It doesn't do anything, though. It doesn't get you anywhere. You're still stuck in the same loop, right? And this isn't about being investigative. That doesn't work with this. It's about letting go of the behaviors, teaching your brain that you're already safe, and then therefore it stops producing the thoughts. Because the brain really believes it's helping you every time that you engage in these behaviors, because it's reinforcing the idea that it really did keep you safe. And that's the veil that needs to be lifted. That's why ERP works. That's why people will do 7 years of therapy and get nowhere. And then they go and do 2 weeks of ERP and they're like, dude, I've made more progress in 2 weeks than I have in 7 years. I see it time and again. And I'm not saying that there's not a place for talking about your past and stuff, but, really, when it comes to therapy, and this is, something that a lot of people might not agree with here, but I don't know too many other professions where there's just no end, that like, I know therapists that will just keep telling the person to come back week after week after week after week after week after week. It's like, what's the objective? To spend your whole life in therapy? I don't agree with that model, right? And you can ask my clients and people, one of the number one things I say to people is like, look, at some point I want you to tell me I never want to see you again. Like, that's like one of the things I always say, because it's like, that is what we want. I want you to go live your life. Your life isn't meant to be to sit and always going in retrospect and always analyzing the past, and always, it's like your life is meant to be lived. And if you are in a place where there's too much chaos going on internally, it's like, yes, there's a place and time for getting help. And that's what we do, right, at Restored Minds, of course. I'm not saying I don't believe in that. What I'm saying, though, is like there's a broken model going on here with mental health, in the sense of like, there's just this ambiguous idea of like, oh, just keep talking about it, just keep coming back, right? And people will spend years and insane amounts of money just talking and talking and talking and talking, and really getting nowhere for a lot of, especially when it comes to OCD and anxiety. So, I hope this was helpful. And again, I'm not like saying that you shouldn't do treatment or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying. It's about doing the right treatment, right? And really getting to the place where you can, again, take back control of your life and really start living on your terms. So I hope this was helpful. And, the answer to the specific question of why do I have this specific theme, it doesn't matter. It's not something you need to solve. What you need to do is look at this from a loop problem, remove the behaviors, and that is the approach that you need to take. So that's the answer to the question. And so with that said, hope you guys have a great week. And, if you have any questions that you'd like me to talk about on future episodes, please send them over at support@restoredminds.com. And be sure to check out our 3-day seminar coming up, or our 3-day workshop, not seminar, but it's all remote. It's going to be on Zoom. So wherever you are in the world, you'll have access. And for those of you that can't make it live, you'll actually get access to the replay as well. So be sure to check that out, because I got some exciting stuff to cover there. So wishing you guys the best, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Thank you so much for watching that video. And so if you're struggling with OCD and anxiety, I just wanted to let you know that we have a free training for you over at Restored Minds, where you can start learning how to use our AAA response to really break out of that loop and ultimately take back control of your life. And all you need to do to access is just click the little link below, and you'll be taken to a page where you can register today. Thank you so much.